Well, shares of Hewlett Packard Enterprise jumping as activist investor Elliott Management reportedly builds a position worth more than $1.5 billion in the company. Our next guest says this could change the AI landscape. Epistrophy chief market strategist and host of the Drill Down podcast, the one and only Cory Johnson, join us now to discuss. Cory, it is great to see you. So let's get into these headlines, Cory, because they moved the name. Elliott Management, they built this position HPE per Bloomberg, $1.5 billion, makes Elliott one of the company's top 5 shareholders. Bloomberg saying, Cory, Elliott's exact intentions at HPE could not be immediately learned. But what do you make of all this?
Well, their intention for the stock price to go up. What do you mean it couldn't be learned? I mean, that's what Elliott does. They make investments with hopes the stock price will go up, and sometimes they're going to shake some cages to do so, to rattle some cages to do so. You know, I think this is an acknowledgement of HPE's really fantastic positioning in the world of AI and expanding their offerings in the AI world, where they're really in a strong place competing with Dell, competing with CoreWeave and others. This is not your grandmother's Hewlett Packard. You know, since the breakup in 2015, Antonio Neri has really led this company to be in a really strong place in the world of AI. And while the stock has been beaten up of late, it's created an opening here for Elliott Management.
And Cory, let me ask you, when you talk about their strong competitive position, what differentiates them there, Cory, from the Dells?
They've a bunch of things. In particular, they've got some software offerings that are unique to what they're doing. But in some ways, they have some of the just top-of-the-line products right up there with a Dell, where they've got the latest NVIDIA processors, they've got the latest optical networking in their systems, as referenced by the fact that Elon Musk's XAI has placed about $1.5 billion order with HPE, and they're sitting on billions in orders right now, ready to roll out these Hopper chips and really the most cutting edge design for the servers that they're selling. They're also a big leader in liquid cooling. And as we go forward in the world of AI and data center construction, the ability to keep these chips cool, to build really tightly clustered machines that are using copper to connect to each other, not just optical, but copper because they are so close, as they say at NVIDIA, copper while you can because it's so much cheaper. But because they're using liquid cooling, they can stack these things a lot closer than the sort of build out that other data center construction would require. And so they're in a really unique competitive space as we build out these big $100 billion AI data centers. HPE is in a really strong place to do that.
Hey, Cory, it's Simeon Hyman. You know, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, just that older companies, not just the last generation, but these are companies from like 2 or 3 generations ago that are competing so well. I think of IBM, one of the highest returning tech stocks so far this year. How is it that these companies are innovating? How do you spell that? I don't even know how you spell it. But the ability to to innovate as a legacy company, what is it that's allowing these companies to reinvent themselves?
I think it's leadership. I think, you've watched a lot of people come into HP, and I've watched this company really closely for a long time. And like IBM was a company you could always beat up on because they were taking, I think at one point I'd figured out it was like 11 years, maybe more years, where they were taking one-time restructuring charges because this thing was such a disaster before the breakup. But Antonio Neri is just doing a really strong job at this company, putting them in the right place to succeed, dealing with the really fast iterations of change that are necessary in an AI world, and making the right products at the right time. And again, I think the decisions to go towards liquid cooling and really understand what it's going to take to build out a modern data center, decisions that are made many years ago, are really starting to pay off for this company. And yes, the company got beat up. I think it was a negative 8% print on their server business, but that was during a changeover in NVIDIA chips when we were going from the older architecture to the newer architecture, the Blackwell architecture. And I think there was a hiccup we kind of saw across the industry. HP really got beat up for that. I think maybe because of that kind of legacy stank, if you would, on the name. But I think what we've seen from this company is really strong execution over the course of the last few years.
What about, speaking of Antonio Neri, Cory, what about, he's made some bold moves. This pending takeover of Juniper, $14 billion. Now, the DOJ,
let's talk about that.
The DOJ has sued to block it. We got a trial date. I think it's set for July, Cory. But did you like that move? Just strategically, did you think Antonio Neri is making the right move there?
So I think it's a very smart acquisition because Juniper's got a really good business, and Juniper has some really cutting edge AI technologies. There's a lot of outside chirping about AI. Can it really do anything? Is it really being put to use for anything? Is it really functional outside of helping kids cheat on their homework, right? But what we see with what Juniper's doing with AI is really cutting edge network detection of problems and solutions where a network engineer can just go into a network that's running Juniper systems and say, what's wrong? Please fix it. What do I need to do? And it just gets rave reviews. But I think the DOJ, maybe more importantly, has really got this thing wrong. Cisco is the monster in this industry. And really, they've got over 50% market share in the areas where Juniper competes. And so making Juniper maybe a little stronger with HPE. But again, I think HPE is interested in the AI technologies, not so much the Wi-Fi technologies. I think the DOJ's got that wrong. And I think that's going to come out in trial, or even as they get closer to trial, when they realize that really the places where Juniper is competing, there is lots of competition. There are at least 8 companies in that sector competing with Cisco and with Juniper and with HPE. And this is not a monopolistic competitive threat as the DOJ might want to make it out to be.
Cory, you said there's been some chirping around AI. I want to end there because there has been chirping, and I just want to get your take. Yeah. How confident are you that that mega AI trade and trend remains intact? Because you do hear, smart folks throwing cold water on it, Cory. DeepSeek changed everything. NVIDIA's best days are behind it. I mean, what do you make of that?
It's bunk. What we see in terms of the spending, what we see in terms of all kinds of companies across the board spending money on AI data centers because they can really see that it's the future. And if you start using AI a lot in your job, I'd encourage every single person watching this to find ways to change that you work, to change the way that you work using AI. And what you'll find is massive increases in productivity. You're going to find you've really got to think about what you do and why you do things the way that you do and find ways to make them more streamlined. And it's just an amazing technology that I think we're only starting to see the beginning of. And it's going to be exciting times going forward. I have no doubt that that's the future of technology and work.